So, what is a thought? There's been a lot of theories trying to understand this phenomena. Some theories explain thought as vivid imaginary pictures in the mind. Some say that a thought is a synonym to an idea. These ideas help us grasp the concept of thinking. However, they do not explain the exact processes behind thought. That's where the biopsychological perspective can better help us understand the underlying mechanisms behind thinking. The human brain is composed of about 100 billion nerve cells interconnected by trillions of connections, called synapses. On average, each connection transmits about 1 signal per second. Some specialized connections send up to 1,000 signals per second. According to Charles Janis, director of neurotechnology at the MIT McGovern Institute for Brain Research, this extraordinary complexity of neurons is what produces thought. Our brain consists of approximately 86 billion neurons. Neurons are nerve cells that are fundamental units of the brain and nervous system. Each neuron has the potential to connect to hundreds, if not thousands, of other neurons. You could say that the brain is as complex as the universe. This leaves brain researchers with quite a difficult task to figure out such a complex system. One single neuron is quite useless if left alone. It will not provide any significant function for its organism. But when it's combined with a vast network of neurons, it would create something as amazing as thoughts. Neurons release brain chemicals known as neurotransmitters, which work as a key to generate electrical signals in neighboring neurons. These electrical signals are a result of change in the membrane potential, which are the difference in electrical potential between the intracellular fluid and the extracellular fluid of the biological neuron. When the cell is inactive or at resting state, the membrane is at its resting potential, which is at around minus 70 millivolts, meaning that there are more negative charged ions on the inside of the cell than the outside of the cell. The presynaptic neuron releases different neurotransmitters. The postsynaptic neuron will reach a threshold for its action potential. If the signal is powerful enough, it will elicit a change in the membrane potential of the cell. This could happen by temporal summation or spatial summation, thereby eliciting a powerful enough threshold that a action potential can be set loose on the postsynaptic nerve. This means that the threshold can be reached by either one neuron firing rapidly at its postsynaptic neuron or by neighboring neurons firing at the same time, thereby eliciting a powerful enough threshold that a action potential can be set loose on the postsynaptic nerve. The signal has to be excitatory, meaning that it will elicit an action potential, not inhibitory, which will inhibit a nerve impulse. When the threshold is reached at around minus 55 millivolts, sodium channels will open, making sodium ions flood in due to the forces from the electrical and concentration gradient. This process is called depolarization, where the inside of the cell becomes more positive. And this is the switching of membrane potential in action, leading to a nerve impulse traveling down the axon of the neuron. The axon is covered with myelin. Myelin is a fatty sheet where the electrical impulses cannot pass. There are parts of the axon that is not covered with myelin, and these parts are called nodes of Ranvier. In these parts, the ions can pass the cell membrane. Of course, the ion channels have to be open, which they are in an action potential. The electrical nerve impulse will travel all along the axon until it reaches the axon terminals, where it will unlock neurotransmitters that communicate the signal till the next neuron. Basically, the electrical signals propagate like a wave through thousands of neurons, which leads to thought formation. Thoughts are not generated from one specific neuron. It's the symphony of many neurons that make a thought. You could correlate the idea of a thought to the idea of a forest. You can't look at one tree and tell if the forest originated from that one exact tree. You have to look at all the components of the forest. You may wonder what actually triggers a nerve impulse. Well, this can be led back to our senses. A thought is often directly linked to memorization of impressions from our senses. If you think of a pink elephant, you could probably vividly imagine this pink elephant. You can even imagine petting this pink elephant's fluffy fur with your fingers, feeling all its fluffiness on your fingertips. This will then lead to an activation of a afferent nerve within the peripheral nervous system, which will then send a signal to the central nervous system. It is quite mind-blowing to think about that you created that just from thought. Thoughts are sincerely powerful. They can activate physiological processes in your body, just as real events do. And to be thoroughly mindful of your thinking patterns is indeed recommended.